In the wake of a zombie outbreak, an exhausted employee seizes the moment to embrace life on his terms, embarking on a thrilling bucket list adventure. In Japan, diligent worker Akira Tendo races urgently, pursued closely by a horde of zombies. Surprisingly, his priority remains reaching his workplace on time despite the imminent danger. A year ago, on his first day at work, the eager employee wore his suit and tie. He happily greeted others he passed by while walking to the office. When Akira reached the Master Shot building, he introduced himself to his colleagues as a fresh member of the commercial production division. His speech earned him warm applause from the staff. Soon after, the director guided the newcomer to his workstation under the supervision of Chief Kosugi. Seated at his desk, the new employee felt grateful for the job. Suddenly, producer Othori greeted him, and he reciprocated the gesture. Captivated by her beauty, he couldn't help but consider himself fortunate for having an attractive colleague. After the workday ended, the company organized a welcome party for Akira. During the event, he got acquainted with his teammates Yamaguchi and Yoshida. Unexpectedly, their leader Kosugi stood up and instructed his team members to leave. Grateful for the gesture, the newcomer thanked his colleagues and said goodbye, thinking he would meet them the next day. Yet his supervisor corrected him, highlighting they had a work schedule for the night. Upon hearing this, the fresh hire nodded with happiness and confusion. Before midnight, the staff returned to the office building to resume their tasks. Meanwhile, Akira felt overwhelmed by working a double shift on his first day. When morning came, he spent another day working and couldn't go home. After 2 days of non-stop shifts, the weary newcomer finally returned to his apartment. Before collapsing onto his bed, he realized he had a toxic workplace. In the following days, Akira made the office his second home, spending extensive hours there. The new hire also discovered that he has an unreasonable supervisor who wants his workers to make independent decisions but would snap when employees don't seek his approval. After work, Akira drinks with college friend and former football teammate Kencho. When he shares his concerns about unfair work conditions, his buddy advises him to quit and live on his terms. Frustrated with his pal's shallow advice, the stressed rookie confronted him for his apathy. However, when the former athlete pointed out his people-pleasing tendency, the new employee brought up the college football game they lost due to his lack of attention, leading to a heated argument. Later, Akira headed to the production room and saw Othori dealing with clients. Upon noticing the fresh hire's pale face, the concerned producer approached and asked if he was okay. In response, the new worker assured her that he was fine and noted how watching her process could be helpful for him to learn. When the rookie admired the woman's freedom in doing things she wanted, the senior employee implied that people sacrifice their actual wants and choose their careers. Shortly after, she advised him to take a break, leaving him with 2 juice bottles. Upon Akira's return to his station, Kosugi reprimanded him for not submitting his budget chart. When the fresh hire argued that he had 2 more days before the deadline, the supervisor insisted on doing it immediately. The superior also pointed out that he should quit pretending to be an athlete star and follow orders. As the new employee rushed to do the task, he realized that his company was exploitative but hesitated to quit because he was lucky to have a job. After pulling more all-nighters at the office, a tired Akira contemplated self-harming thoughts on his way home, thinking it would help him avoid going to work the next day. Unbeknownst to him, a zombie was lurking behind him. The following day, the recruit forced himself to work but saw his zombied elderly neighbor devouring another person. When the undead old man suddenly walked towards him, the petrified worker rushed back to his apartment and shockingly found the other residents infected. In the present, despite what's happening, an anxious Akira still thinks about getting to his office on time. He goes to the rooftop and climbs a high grill wall, allowing him to escape from the undead. Looking at his surroundings, the employee notices that zombies are everywhere. Upon realizing he doesn't need to go to the office, the worker rejoices, embracing his newfound freedom. Following this, a relieved Akira starts thinking about what he will do in his free time. Shortly after, he drinks the juice bottle from his bag and suddenly remembers Othori, wondering if she's okay. Upon texting his colleague, the unemployed man immediately gets a response asking him to come over to her location. As he climbs down the tenement building through a pipe, Akira stumbles upon a pregnant couple and volunteers to get them supplies. Shortly after, he rides his bike quickly to get to Othori's place. Upon entering the door, he finds the producer trembling, pointing at their zombified director behind his back. When the man invites her to run, he finds her injured. Left with no choice, the former football athlete uses his skills to save his colleague by firmly pushing the director against the wall. Shortly after, Othori approaches the undead executive and hits him with a book multiple times, upset with him for not fulfilling his promise to leave his wife for her. However, shortly after, the producer turns into a zombie, revealing she was also infected. When the zombified producer comes after him, Akira manages to push her away. Before leaving the apartment, the tearful ex-employee confesses to his undead crush that he has been in love with her. Following this, the free man returns to the tenement building but shockingly finds the pregnant couple's apartment covered in blood. After entering his apartment, the survivor recalls Othori's statement about people pushing their goals aside to prioritize their careers. Shortly after, he gets his notebook and starts listing 100 things he wants to do before becoming a zombie. For his first entry, Akira writes about confessing his feelings to someone and then crosses it out because he had done it earlier. Afterward, he jots down 9 more activities. The following day, the determined man works on the second thing on his list, to clean his room. Afterward, he goes grocery shopping without being concerned about the price. Then he heads to the salon and dyes his hair but reverts it to its original color. Following this, Akira paints a massive self-portrait in a building and rides a motorcycle. By night, he sets off a beautiful fireworks display. On his 5th day of freedom, the former employee builds a stay-at-home camp on the tenement's rooftop. However, he immediately becomes frustrated when the condiments won't pour out on his steak. To get flavor enhancers for his meal, Akira heads to a convenience store where he meets another survivor named Shizuka Mikazuki. Shortly after, a man screams outside, asking for help, prompting the former laborer to rescue him. As a result, Akira accidentally lures the zombie inside the mini-mart. With fast action, the woman uses her combat skills to defeat one enemy and then uses a loud alarm to distract the other. Upon witnessing this strategy, the former athlete is impressed. Following this, he attempts to invite her to join him at his stay-at-home camp. However, the cold lady refuses, pointing out that the man will only attract danger because of his desire to rescue others. Upon returning to his apartment, Akira suddenly remembers his football teammate and best friend Kensho, who advised him to live on his terms. The former athlete recalls their last argument and then wrote something on his bucket list. Shortly after, he calls his buddy, who turns out to be alive but stuck inside a love hotel. To rescue Kensho, Akira wears his football gear and rides a motorcycle, skillfully evading the zombies on the road. Meanwhile, his friend attempts to escape the room but immediately aborts his plan upon encountering zombies outside. Upon returning inside the room, the laid-back ex-athlete sits on the floor and cries as he recalls his last argument with his best pal, who blamed him for their loss during their game. When he arrives outside the hotel, Akira throws his blaring speaker to another side of the road to distract the zombies. Once his path is clear, he runs toward the street and pushes the other undead creatures that block his way. Following this, the ex-employee manages to get inside the hotel. Upon seeing Kensho, he apologizes for what he said during their argument, emphasizing his jealousy of his friend's free-spirited nature. After reconciling, they head to the roof to escape from the zombies. To ease their hunger, the former athletes go to an abandoned restaurant where Kensho uses the supplies to cook a delicious meal. After dining and drinking, Akira shows his bucket list to his friend, who gets teary-eyed upon seeing his last entry, which is to apologize to his best friend. The cook then thanks his former teammate for saving his life and notes that he must be the one to protect everyone from danger. Upon hearing this, the ex-star athlete gets motivated and writes on his bucket list that he wants to be a superhero. On the 6th day of the apocalypse, Kensho learns from social media news that central Tokyo is zombie-infested, prompting Akira to suggest they relocate to the Marine Paradise Aquarium. The former football player explains they can find a shark suit in that area, which can protect them from enemies' bites. Before heading to their destination, they decide to restock their supplies by visiting a mini-mart. However, just when they're about to open the store, a bus filled with passengers arrives, and the zombies bite some of them. Upon witnessing this, Akira does his best to save those he can. He calls the 2 women and the bus driver and guides them inside the convenience store. Shortly after, he and Kensho spot Shizuka fighting off enemies. When the fighter realizes she's helpless, she rushes toward the former athletes and joins them inside the shop, freeing them from the zombies' grasp. Following this, Akira learns from the bus driver that they are also headed to the Marine Paradise Aquarium to be safe from the undead. Suddenly, the transit operator breaks down, realizing it's his fault for putting the passengers' lives in danger. Unbeknownst to the survivors, he already has a zombie bite. Meanwhile, the 2 other survivors, Reika and Maki, drink liquor to cope during the difficult time. When they invite Shizuka to join them, the detached woman refuses, pointing out that she'll guard their area. Later, the former athlete spent time with the two women, who turn out to be flight attendants. After checking his bucket list, Akira asks the ladies if they are single. However, they reject his advances, commenting on his poor timing for asking someone at such a difficult time. Meanwhile, Kencho, a natural ladies' man, gets along with the stewardesses. As Akira wallows in disappointment, Shizuka witnesses him, prompting him to act normally. Shortly after, he gives her a bottle of water as a token of gratitude for her patrolling. When the ex-athlete tries to introduce himself and shake her hand, the fighter notices a wound on his palm. As she wraps the scratch, the woman reveals that she had once studied to be a doctor, revealing why she knew first aid. Suddenly, the infected bus driver rises as a zombie and chases after them. After Akira and Shizuka escape, the undead chauffeur goes after Kencho and the flight attendants. After biting the two ladies, the corpse walker targets the former football player. Hearing his friend scream, Akira attempts to rescue his teammate. However, he becomes distracted when he sees Shizuka leaving, asserting they cause her so much trouble. To plan her escape, the intelligent lady turns on the stereo to distract the zombies and clear her path. As a result, the infected bus driver leaves Kencho alone, allowing him to reunite with Akira. However, as Shizuka tries to pull up the storefront gate, she catches the undead flight attendant's attention, prompting her to run to another area. While fighting off the zombies, she finds herself cornered and helpless. When Akira witnesses this, he helps his fellow survivor by using fireworks to lure the walking corpses away from the woman. Shortly after, the trio cooperates in lifting the barrier, allowing them to get outside the shop. Then they use an abandoned RV to escape the zombie-infested city. During the ride, Shizuka wonders why they returned for her despite knowing the dangers of rescuing her. In response, Akira reveals that he wants to be a superhero, which he finds absurd. Shortly after, the aloof woman agrees to be their teammate on their way to the Marine Paradise Aquarium, where they can be safe from the zombies. On the 7th day, the team tries stand-up paddleboarding yoga, paragliding, camping, and playing fireworks. For the first time, Akira witnesses Shizuka loosening up and having fun. The following evening, the trio heads to the hot springs to relax. As they watch the fireflies in the trees, the detached woman thanks her teammates for saving her back in the store. On the 10th day, Kencho and his teammates finally arrive at the aquarium. However, they had an accident just meters away from the place after one of their tires deflated from a nail trap on the road. As a result, Akira unintentionally hit his head on the cabinet and falls to the ground, rendering him unconscious. Upon waking, the former athlete finds himself in a room with his former boss Kosugi. Following this, the superior tours his ex-employee around the Marine Paradise Aquarium, which he turned into his own company as he converted the survivors into his laborers. As Akira examines the place, he spots the pregnant couple from his tenement building, which relieves him. He also witnesses Kencho and Shizuka carrying boxes. When he attempts to speak with them, the manager interrupts and brings him outside. He reveals that he made the zombies as a security workforce to scare away thieves. When Kosugi offers him to join their workforce, the ex-athlete initially hesitates because he hasn't finished his bucket list yet. However, the manipulative superior asks him if the list is worth more than his friend's safety, prompting the man to accept the man's request eventually. Later, the boss and his subordinates eat good meals in the cafeteria while Kencho, Shizuka, and the pregnant couple have bland food. Meanwhile, Akira serves the manager by refilling his glass with liquor. Upon witnessing what happened to his friend, Kencho attempts to stand up to his superior. However, the concerned husband stops him, asserting that he'll get himself and the whole unit kicked out if he opposes. Shortly after, he proposes a plan to get the trio out of the place. The helpful man then leads the former athlete and Shizuka to the parking lot where they find the RV. Meanwhile, a truck driver returns to the aquarium after getting supplies, unaware that a zombie managed to get inside his vehicle. Upon his return, the walking corpse infects the guards, leading the undead security workforce to infiltrate the building and bite the workers inside. Unaware of what's happening in the aquarium, Kencho fixes the RV's tire and then invites Akira on their escape. However, the former athlete hesitates, thinking the place is safe for them. Upon hearing this, his friend is disappointed with him for behaving differently. Shortly after, Shizuka sees Akira's bucket list in the motorhome and rushes inside the aquarium to convince her friend to join them. She emphasizes that staying in the place makes them no different from the zombies because they have to be constantly compliant and exhausted. As the former athlete hesitates, Shizuka presents the bucket list, asserting that he can't fulfill what he wants to do anymore if he turns into an undead man, Suddenly, Kosugi intervenes, grabs the notebook and steps on it. Upon seeing this cruel act, Akira stands up to his boss and resigns. Shortly after, a horde of zombies enters the area and starts biting the workers. While the trio does their best to help everyone, the selfish manager runs away and saves himself. Later, the survivors rush to a safe room to lock themselves from the zombies. As they walk further, they find themselves in the pool room where Kosugi is hiding. Suddenly, an infected shark emerges from the water. As Shizuka reassures everyone that the creature can't survive on land, the zombies inside the colossal fish thrust their feet out of the marine animal's body, granting it multiple limbs. Upon such sight, the workers run for their lives and hide in the storeroom under Akira's guidance. Meanwhile, Kosugi tries to escape independently but makes a sound that directs the zombie shark to him. When Akira realizes that their boss isn't with them, he insists on going out to rescue him. Despite his initial refusal, Kensho supports his friend's quest to be a superhero and suggests he wears the shark suit to protect himself from the bites. Following this, the duo goes outside the storeroom to retrieve Kosugi. While Kensho distracts the creature using a forklift, Akira returns to the pool room to fight off the undead chasing his superior. However, the infected creatures outpower the aspiring superhero and bite his suit. Meanwhile, his sidekick's forklift is pushed against the wall by the shark, prompting him to leave and jump into a hole leading inside the pool room. Abruptly, Shizuka enters the scene with two megaphones blaring a loud song. By luring the undead towards her, she skillfully hurls the devices in opposite directions, guiding the zombies away from her and prompting them to leap into the water, left and right. While Kosugi praises Akira's moves, the shark breaches the opening and lands near the boss, launching him into the air. The superior smashes into the wall, inadvertently striking the controls and activating the red room lights. As the superhero attends to the manager, the infected marine animal follows him, prompting the ex-athlete to pick up a cylindrical object to stop the fish's mouth from biting him. To help her struggling friend, Shizuka picks up a flashlight and removes its batteries, planning to shock the shark using them. However, as the creature destroys the area, she finds her foot stuck under a heavy object. Unable to move, she tasks Kensho to toss the batteries to Akira for him to use against the shark's nose. Just before the throw, the former athlete recollects the game he once lost, motivating him to evade the shark and skillfully fling the power cells toward his teammate. After getting the batteries, Akira praises his teammate for the accurate throw, but when he notices his unconscious teammate on the ground, he screams with rage. With all his strength, the aspiring hero punches the batteries into the shark's nose, electrifying it. After defeating the enemy, the defender and Shizuka approach Kensho, who turns out to be faking his demise to protect himself. Meanwhile, Kosugi also turns out to be alive. Afterward, the trio leads the remaining survivors to the parking lot, readying for departure. Suddenly, the superior interjects, commanding them to remain. However, the workers unite in defiance, choosing Akira's leadership over his as they recognize his genuine concern for their well-being. When the trio is about to leave, Kosugi convinces Akira to stay with him. However, the former boss pleaser asserts that he chooses to be with his team and drives off, leaving the superior all alone. During the ride, the superhero worries about getting a real job after calling it quits with his manager. In response, Shizuka advises him to live his best life while Kensho reminds him that he's already a heroic figure. Upon hearing this, Akira suddenly stops the car and invites his friends to write their desired goals on his bucket list. Kensho then takes the notebook and says he wants to be a comedian and make people laugh. On the other hand, Shizuka jots down that she wants to be a doctor and save lives. After his friends finish writing, Akira takes the notebook and crosses out his goal of becoming a superhero. With a smile, he writes, "Make being a superhero my new job." In the following line, the trio embarks on their journey, eager for the next adventure.